Report story. Izu. Don't open that box. Ochako called from the other side of the room, waving her hands. Izuku stopped opening one of the cardboard boxes in the corner, turning back towards her. Why? What's wrong with this box? Izuku asked, furrowing his eyebrows. Ochako's ears went a bit red as she rushed over and took the mid-sized box from Izuku's grip. Izuku blinked a few times. What was so embarrassing to hide from him? Ochako took the box over to her side of the room and started looking through it herself. Izu, you can organize that box over there. I think that's some of the clothes that I didn't get to take with me to Ua when the dorms were opened, she said, gesturing with her head as she looked through the box she now had in her custody. Izuku shrugged and reached for the box that she had gestured at. They had been in her new room, organizing and unpacking everything her parents had brought from their original home. So Ocha, do you plan to move here instead of live in the log cabin with me and Eri? Izuku asked quietly, trying and struggling to remove the tape that was on the box he was trying to open. Ochako, who was rummaging through the box she had taken, immediately turned around to look at Izuku from across the room. Absolutely not, she said without hesitation. I love my parents, and I do miss them. But Izuku, living with you is a dream come true. I wouldn't give that up for the world. Something pretty drastic would have to happen for me to move back in with my parents if living with you is an option. Izuku glanced back at Ochako, their eyes meeting. After a few seconds of staring into them, Izuku smiled. I really love you, he said, turning back to the box. Ochako smiled back. I know you do, Ochako said, happily turning back to her box. Plus, what would you do without me? You need me there. Here it is. Ochako pulled a notebook out of her box and dusted it off. She hadn't seen this since she had left home to move into the dorms. Find what you were looking for in there? Izuku asked, just now succeeding in removing the tape from his box. Yes, and you are not allowed to see what it is. Keep working on your box, mister. Ochako said, opening the book. Ochako looked through the book, reminiscing. She knew it wouldn't be safe to bring a diary to school with her. Especially with how nosy Mina was. She had missed her diary though. It held multiple amazing entries and memories. Most about Izuku. Ochako smiled as she flipped through the pages before something fell out one of the pages. She picked it up and laughed once she saw what it was. A picture of her and Mina in the school classroom, Mina throwing up a peace sign and Ochako giving her a terrified look. In the background you could see Aizawa at the front board, his eyes red as he was seemingly looking at Mina taking a picture mid-class. They both had gotten in trouble because of that. Ochako refused to talk to Mina the rest of the day as Mina apologized profusely, though the smile never left Mina's face. I wonder how everyone back at the school is doing. Ochako asked herself. They hadn't had any contact from Ua since Aizawa's message. Ochako and Izuku hadn't brought it up, but both knew that each of them missed their fellow classmates. This had to be done to ensure their safety in the classes. Gaslighter and the League of Villains had started something, and Izuku was unfortunately the key to everything. Izuku couldn't be lost and had to be ready. But even knowing that, they couldn't help but miss everyone. Ochako sighed, putting the picture back in the diary before hearing Izuku scream from behind her. She quickly turned around to see Izuku holding up a pair of pink and white panties. Ochako, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I was just going through the box and... Izuku, stop shouting, I don't care. Ochako said, rolling her eyes and turning her attention back to her diary. If anything, tell me what you think I would look good in, I'll use it for. You know. Promoted stories. You'll also like, I Hate and Love You. 259k 4.6 con. IzuOcha fanfiction where Deku and Uraraka had a fight in kindergarten which led to something worse. But maybe they can be friends or perhaps more. Non-Quirko rated. Different 83k 1.5k Deku is the number one hero. He has fame and money, but he doesn't care much for either. He wants something more but doesn't know what. That is until he meets a very interesting. The quirkless lion unseen power. S1N. Kurayami has always lived in the shadows, pretending to be quirkless in a world that reveres power. Her secret isn't weakness, it's Mindwef, a terrifying ability. Revenge of the wronged hero who happens to be. One could have thought that someone as pure and innocent as Izuku Midoriya would be betrayed by his friends who he thought that he could trust with everything he has. Dream on B. K. Downwards arrow tip rightwards in which a jealous bachelor signs a deal with the devil in order to win over the heart of his first love. Katsuki Bakugo has loved the PR. Shining Light 42.8k 928 Quickless. Normal. No heroes or quirks, so Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka have been best friends since kindergarten. But when problems in high school try to drift them. The paths he chooses. Book 1. A Fate of Few. S. A normal day for Izuku as he completes his normal routine and goes to school. Along the way he runs into Yui Kodai, a quiet and mysterious girl of Class 1B, they E. Oh okay, sure, Izuku said, red-faced and still holding the panties. Ochako really liked to pick and choose when things were embarrassing. Wait, if this wasn't embarrassing to her, then what was in that box she took from me? Before Izuku could think of what was in the box, Ochako's mother burst into the room. Hello you two, I hope you guys are staying for the night. We have a nice dinner planned out in. Mrs. Uraraka looked down to see Izuku sitting in front of the box, holding Ochako's panties. She brought the tips of her fingers to her mouth trying to conceal a smile. She turned and looked at Ochako, who looked horrified. Ochako dear, we do have condoms upstairs if you think. Mom, no, just leave, please. Okay, I'm going. Ochako's mother said, giving a wink at her daughter before exiting the room. Ochako slammed the door behind her mother. Her face bright red. I do want to borrow some of those though. She mumbled. What was that? Izuku stuttered. I asked how you think our class is doing. Ochako said flustered. That's a good question. Izuku said, putting the panties in the top shelf of the dresser. While he knew Ochako said that just to get some heat off of her, he couldn't help but actually think about his classmates. The two had basically left them with clean-up duty after the battle. How was the rest of the class doing? Tilda. A few days after the gaslighter attacked Tilda, Momo slowly opened the door to her dorm room and crashed onto the bed. Deep bags were under her eyes, her hair a mess and her body sore. She closed her eyes and sighed deeply. She had to stay strong. The school, the city, the people, the students. Everyone needed her, her and the rest of Class 1A. She had to do her best. She had to. She was a Yaoyorozu. Suddenly there was a knock on her door. Momo's hand clenched the covers she had been laying on. Please be who she needed it to be. She didn't have the energy to converse with anyone else. Come in, she said weakly without opening her eyes. She heard the door turn and softly close. She felt the bed creak a bit and warp to adjust to the extra weight on her bed. A warm feeling appeared on her thigh. Momo smiled. I would have kicked out anyone else. She said. Todoroki gave her a look. Sorry. You must be tired. Should I leave? He asked in his familiar monotone voice. No, not at all, Momo said, sitting up slightly to look at the white and red-haired boy. Please, if anything I'd rather have you here than be alone. Todoroki gave a small smile, pulling himself up onto the bed entirely. Momo allowed Todoroki to adjust himself into a sitting position before she laid her head on his lap. They're really taking a lot out of you. Don't you think they may be working you a bit too hard? Todoroki asked. Momo sighed. Of course I'm being worked. Creating tools, materials and small machines for reconstruction. They need me out there. Momo said. She knew she was needed, but this kind of work was draining her. It's hard. I understand. They've been using my ice and fire for building construction support and my flames for melting cement. But hero work isn't all just saving people. They don't have me working as hard as you do though. Todoroki said, rubbing the top of Momo's head. She smiled. You don't have to put on a front with me, Shoto. I know you're just as tired as me. Of course everyone would want the son of the number one hero to be out on the front lines helping. Todoroki's smile faded. Yeah, Momo glanced upwards from Todoroki's lap. Sorry, I know you're still a bit iffy about your father. She said instantly feeling regret. Todoroki, however, shook his head. It's not that. My old man and I definitely still have things to work out. But that's not my concern right now. It's the state of society. People aren't happy with us. They think we've failed them. Yes, you're right. It's disheartening. They blame the heroes for what happened. Momo said. Todoroki frowned, looking slightly frustrated. He clenched the fist of his free hand while using his other to continue to stroke Momo's head. You put a lot of the blame on yourself, don't you? Momo asked, as she forced herself upright. Todoroki looked down at his lap that Momo had occupied only a second ago. You had to save me when I was fighting the clone in the streets. And then when I came to the dorms where you were defending Midoriya. I couldn't do anything. I failed the city and you. Momo shook her head. It wasn't your fault. You were handicapped. Your quirk is fire and ice. His quirk was gasoline. There wasn't much you could have done. You froze yourself to almost death trying to protect everyone. Literally. Momo said, bringing a hand to Todoroki's cheek, making him look at her. Her gray tired eyes stared deep into his blue and gray eyes. I'm really proud of you. Momo said, leaning in and kissing Todoroki. Todoroki grabbed her waist and brought her warmth closer to him. He could never get enough of her. Still, Momo said, sounding a bit more disheartened after pulling away. Where do we go from here? Midoriya and Uraraka were sent away. I'm worried. Do you think they'll be okay? Todoroki thought about Momo's question. He too had been worried for Midoriya and Uraraka. Aizawa had instructed them not to contact the two, and their location hadn't been given out to the class whatsoever. I think they'll be all right. You saw Midoriya that day, Todoroki said, putting a hand on Momo's back. Momo laid her head on Todoroki's shoulders. I know you said don't think too much on it, but I can't help but think Midoriya's quirk has something to do with it. Shoto, I want to help them. Momo said, tears forming in her eyes. Todoroki raised his hand and brushed the tears away with his finger. Yeah, me too. But I think we will. Give it time. You know Aizawa won't let anything bad happen to them. I'm sure there's going to be more things for us to do. Momo nodded her head as she closed her eyes, starting to drift away. Todoroki noticed the weight on his shoulder grow heavier. He carefully laid her down on her oversized pillows and allowed her some rest. He smiled softly before returning to his monotone face. He got up and slowly walked out the room, turning off the light and quietly closing the door behind him. Todoroki sighed and looked down the still slightly burned and dirty hallway to see a pink-haired girl running towards him. Todoroki. Ah. Is Momo asleep? I needed to talk to her about something. Mina said as she slowed to a stop in front of him. Todoroki nodded. Sorry, but she really shouldn't be disturbed right now. Todoroki said in his usual voice. Mina sighed overdramatically. I won't. I won't. No sneakiness from the alien queen. She said with a pout. Todoroki however frowned just a bit. Are you alright, Ashido-san? He asked. Mina's eyes grew wide. Yeah, of course, she said happily. Why would you think that? You need to make sure she's okay, not me. You love bugs. Ima get cute photos of you two eventually. Just you watch. She said before darting to her room. Todoroki watched unfazed. She had changed the conversation in order to keep her feelings locked up. Yo, Todoroki, what's up, man? Kirishima asked as Todoroki walked down the stairs, lost in thought, meeting Kirishima who was walking to his room with his fiery red hair down. You seem to be thinking about something. Everything all right? It's nothing. Just, I think something's up with Mina. Todoroki said, snapping out of his thoughtful trance. She's probably upset about Uraraka leaving. A voice behind the two said. Todoroki and Kirishima turned back to see Iida, who was carrying some boxes full of supplies out of his room. His face was a bit hollow as he walked past. I understand what she's going through. Same, Kirishima said, but Bakugo and the others will be just fine. They've always been strong, especially Midoriya. It's super manly of them to go and do, well, whatever it is they're doing. Iida smiled a bit sadly at him. Yeah, you're right, Iida said, walking off with his boxes. Hirishima's smile faded as Iida walked off. Everyone is so down after the fight. And Uraraka and Midoriya leaving isn't helping. They were the ones that helped keep things happy around here. Even I'm feeling a bit down. It's like we're missing pieces of ourselves. Kirishima said with a slightly fallen face. Todoroki put a hand on Kirishima's shoulder before turning and walking towards his own room. Kirishima sighed and turned to go to his room like Todoroki, before stopping and staring up the stairs. Mina was sad, huh? Kenlair here. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. Kenny boy writing about other characters. What? Anyway, thank you to everyone that voted for the contents of this chapter. I got way more votes than anticipated. Here are the results. 1. I 4 2. I 3 3. I 4. 3 5. 4. So onward we go with this arc. With how much I have planned, we still are only in the beginning. Kenny boy, where stories live, discover now.